Welcome to A Few Thoughts About, the show where we dig into thinking and how it shapes our experience of life. Each week, I share insights and observations to get you thinking. No long lectures, just quick, thought-provoking episodes to shift perspectives so that you can make the change you want to make. Let's get into it. Hey, so before we get started, if you like what you're seeing in this podcast and you want more of it, specifically if you want more of it with video, specifically if you want more of it with video and you like YouTube, I have good news for you. I just launched my YouTube channel. So the link will be in the show notes. The handle is @ScottPinyardCoach. And it is going to be this stuff. The podcast is going to be on there. Plus every week I'm going to do a deep dive live on YouTube. So I'll stream it directly to the platform. So if you want more of this, if you want to go deeper on some of the stuff, and if you want more content like this podcast, go subscribe to me on YouTube. It's @ScottPinyardCoach, and the link is in the show description. That is it for me. Let's get started. Well, hello there, and welcome to A Few Thoughts About the Process. This is my first episode in this series, which I am calling Learning. So, what the hell am I doing? Like, you might be wondering, what is this? Why is this different? Well, let me explain. So, one of the things that people ask me about all the time is like, how does this work? Like, how does this process work? And I think what a lot of people are familiar with is sort of going through a process where, they use willpower. So they kind of force themselves to quit. It's intense. It's draining mentally and emotionally. I think chances are, if you're listening to this podcast, you've been there. My process is a little different. Like, the process that I take clients through is different. Now, I happen to operate in a very bespoke way. So I don't really have like, we do this tactic first and then this tactic next. Like, I always tell people I'm much more jazz than classical. But if I zoom out far enough, I can see that there is a general sort of path that most of my clients follow. And that's what I wanted to outline for you, right? That's what I wanted to put here in this podcast, in the hopes that if you need it, you can use it for yourself, or it can at least be a springboard to finding what it is that does work for you. I think it's really important that people understand that there's lots of different ways of skinning this cat. For a long time, we've kind of been under the assumption that there's only one way to do this. And I'm living proof, and there are millions of others out there, that that's absolutely not the case. So that is the idea about my few thoughts about the process. And this is episode 1, or I'll call it phase 1, learning. So, where I start with everybody, is kind of shocking, to be honest with you. Like, a lot of people, when they hear it, they're not totally sure. But the reality is that truly understanding alcohol's impact on your life is, it's a complete game changer. And I think it's a huge thing that helps us move forward. The problem is that for many people, by the time I talk to them, or they've been working on quitting alcohol for a long time, they don't feel like they've been drinking consciously. Like, it's just been this monkey they're trying to get off their back, and they're really wrestling with it, but they're not actually as aware of their situation as they could be, right? And so the first phase that I talk about is not quitting drinking, right? It's not putting down that drink. Instead, it's learning. Now, I should say here, obviously consult your medical doctor. If you've been told you need to quit drinking immediately, then this is not for you. But for me and lots of other people I've worked with, this phase was really important, right? So this phase of learning is about seeing the truth of alcohol in your life. It's about understanding how it impacts you mentally, emotionally, and physically, how it changes the way every day feels, how it changes the way you might show up with your family, at work, at everywhere else, right? And so this phase is all about collecting data. And it's super important. And I know that for a lot of people, they're like, WTF, like, I want to change now. I'm not interested in this, which is totally fine. But hear me out, right? This is one of those ironic times where we need to not do the thing we're trying so hard to do, when we need to let go a little bit so that we can have some space to understand why it's not working. We can have some space to understand new and different approaches, right? Now, to be clear, when I start with clients, I do want them to pick a date, and generally we'll do that. We'll have them pick a date and duration, and I'll talk about that more in the next episode on this. So this is not like an unending, open-ended thing where you could just be, continue drinking forever. That's not what I'm suggesting. But I am suggesting that you take a minute to put down all of the effort and give yourself the opportunity to learn. And there's a few reasons that this is super impactful and I think super important, right? So first, doing this allows us to take the pressure off immediately. And that is something that people need. I don't have to tell you, if you're working on it right now, that this process of trying to quit drinking completely sucks. And by the way, if you're working on changing other things, there's a good chance the same process will work for you when you think about it and kind of think about how to apply these steps. But if you are working on alcohol, you're well aware that it's terrible. And usually by the time people reach out, they're in need of much less noise in their head. When I have discovery calls with new clients, I'll regularly have these conversations of like, man, it's just like, it's all I can think about. And, I can't, I have the mental load of trying to go through this, and it's hard. And, we try to do this alone for so long, we end up getting stuck. We get hung up on our own feeling like we can't actually do it. And we're just in this cycle and over and over and over, right? And this just all leads to like anxiety and despair, and it just fucking sucks. So we need relief from that, right? We need relief. We need to, for a moment, put aside the idea of quitting, stop beating ourselves up about it, and start looking around to understand what's happening. And that leads me to the second reason that this is important, is that when the pressure is off, we can actually see what's going on. Like I said, for so many of us, we're not like drinking consciously. We're not paying attention to what's happening. And so when this pressure is turned on, we're trying to make all these changes because we can see like this isn't a good thing. It's not working. But the problem is we can't actually see what isn't working because we haven't given ourselves the time and the space to actually understand it, right? We get stuck in our pain. We get stuck in being stuck. We end up not actually able to observe things like triggers and precursors, which we'll talk about, but precursors are sort of those things that lead to triggers. And I mean, even the impacts, it's funny. I will talk to people and they'll start to talk about how their drinking is impacting others. And we're well aware of a good chunk of it, but there's so much to see. And the more we see, the more information we have, the better plan we can put together, the more likely that we're going to be able to put together a plan that's going to get us where we want to go, right? So first, it helps us take the pressure off immediately, which we need. Second, when we take that pressure off, we can actually see what's going on. And third, the first two allow us to put a plan together that is so much more effective, right? In phase 2 is planning, and we'll talk about this, but it's so funny what tends to happen. Like, I don't know if this sounds familiar to you, but for me, holy shit, I had so many mornings where I woke up and I said, you know what? This is it. This is the day, right? I am done. And I had no plan and I was just doing it. But I was doing it because I was really fed up. Like, I was really, really, really unhappy. And I meant it when I said I was done. But with the lack of a plan, things just kind of fell apart as time goes on. So if you do the first two pieces of this, if you take the pressure off and allow yourself to look around, then you can get the most out of making a plan that's going to have a huge impact. So you might be wondering then, like, what exactly is it that we should be looking for during this time, right? If I'm spending this time learning, what am I learning, right? Well, as I mentioned before, it's interesting that like most people don't drink consciously. Like, we're not fully aware of what it feels like to drink, what the experience is like to drink, what, kind of how things shift. We just kind of go along for the ride. So when we get to the point of it being an issue, we tend to just be on autopilot and we just get that drink. And it feels like we're stuck, but we're also kind of paying a lot of attention to our own emotions, but not as much to things around us, right? That's why this time is important, because it gives us time to see things more clearly. So a few of the things that I suggest, and there's lots of things that you could be looking for, but the few of the things that I suggest people take a look for are triggers, right? That's an easy one. This one's obvious, but what's really fascinating, and I've seen this over and over and over, when I first start working with someone, I'll ask them, like, what triggers do you have? They'll tell me, we'll have a list, and then as they go through this learning phase, we add on to that list, right? Because there's the big ones that we all know about, like, oh, it's stress at work, or oh, it's my partner, or oh, it's my financial situation, or whatever it might be. Like, those are all like things that I hear regularly, but there's definitely more than you're seeing right now. And so if you take this opportunity to look around and learn, you will find more. And that's great, because we can make a plan with those triggers. The second one are what I call precursors, right? These are the things that lead to triggers. I got this idea from a fantastic book, which, if you haven't read it yet, is really, really good. It's called The Biology of Desire by Mark Lewis. But he talks about how these things, tend to happen in like patterns of behavior. So there are things that lead to a trigger that your brain is aware of. So, like, imagine it's Thursday nights and you always go out drinking with Susan on Thursday nights. And Susan always calls you around 4:00 to make sure that you're coming, right? So you're just going around your day. You're going about your Thursday. You're doing your thing. You're at your office. The fact that it's Thursday is kind of a precursor. But you know what else is a precursor? That phone ringing at about 4:00 when Susan calls you to say, hey, you should come with us for drinks, right? Like, the bar itself might be the trigger, or the drink itself might be the trigger, whatever it is that it feels like to you. But there are patterns of behavior around triggers that if we can become aware of them, holy moly, do we have an opportunity to change things, right? So we talked about triggers. We talked about precursors. The last piece is something I call the impacts. And this one isn't pretty, but it's important. Taking a moment to see how alcohol is really impacting your life is key, right? Looking around at your relationships, at your work, at your day-to-day, right? Feeling it, actually living in it, which is going to give you a much deeper understanding of what that actually is. So while that's not fun, getting clear on that, taking notes on that, seeing that for what it really is, it's incredibly powerful, and it's going to be super helpful for you as you start moving forward, right? So when we can do all of this, when we can stay in that place, when we can look around, when we can understand the lay of the land, that's how we give ourselves the best chance of moving forward. We tend to think that we know it all because we've had some bad experiences, and Lord knows I was in that same boat. But the reality is that if we take a few minutes to breathe, if we give ourselves some time to look around and learn, we can do so much better on this process. So that was phase 1, learning. The next episode will be phase 2, planning. And in that episode, we're going to talk about how to put a plan together and what are the sort of things to look for. So that is it from me. Let me know what you think. Going over to scottpiniard.com/podcast. You can send me an email from there. You can also suggest topic ideas. I love getting topic ideas. I'd be very happy to record topics on podcasts on various topics. I hope that this has been helpful for you, and I'll see you again next week.